In the 1980s, Kunming, the capital of Yunnan province, China, was a peaceful city with bustling streets, vibrant markets, and ancient houses nestled at the foot of mountains. But a dark shadow soon engulfed this serene place, turning its tranquil days into a relentless nightmare. A series of mysterious disappearances targeted young girls aged 13 to 18, plunging the city into a state of paralyzing fear. These girls vanished without a trace, as if swallowed by the darkness, leaving behind heartbroken families and a helpless police force. Were these random incidents, or was there a sinister plot at play? As the police dug deeper into their investigation, they uncovered a gruesome massacre, a family brutally slaughtered in their own home. Were the disappearances and the murders connected, or was it all a terrifying coincidence? Join us as we uncover the full truth behind this nightmare in today's video. Welcome to Blood and Truth, the channel where we unravel the most horrifying cases and history stories based on real documents and authentic testimonies. Today we'll travel back to 1984 when Kunming was shrouded in fear and uncertainty. In just 3 short months, 3 girls aged 13 to 18 vanished without a trace. The victims were ordinary schoolgirls or young women living normal lives with no conflicts with family or friends. They disappeared without leaving a single clue, sending the entire community into a state of panic. People began whispering about shadowy figures, predators lurking in the city's dark corners. Imagine being a parent in Kunming at that time. Every afternoon as your daughter left school, you held your breath waiting for the familiar sound of the door opening. But one day, she didn't come home. That was the terror 3 families endured. The first victim was a 15-year-old girl named Xiaolan, a well-mannered student with long black hair and a radiant smile. She vanished on her way home from school just a few kilometers from the city center. Her family searched everywhere, from dark alleys to crowded markets, but found no trace. The only witness was an elderly street vendor who claimed she saw Xiaolan talking to a tall, unfamiliar man in a black coat. But the description was too vague, and in an era without surveillance cameras, it offered little help. The second incident occurred just 2 weeks later. The victim was a 17-year-old girl named Xiao Ming, the daughter of a merchant family. Xiao Ming disappeared while strolling near the city's central lake. Her friends recalled her mentioning a man who often loitered near her school with deep-set eyes and a chilling smile. Her family reported her missing, but investigative technology at the time was rudimentary. There was no facial recognition, no DNA analysis. Everything relied on witness statements and traditional police work. The police launched extensive searches, combing neighborhoods and desolate roads, but found no signs of a struggle or any evidence. Witnesses said Xiao Ming left home in a cheerful mood, showing no signs of distress. This left the police baffled. Did the girls leave willingly, or were they lured by someone sinister? The third case marked the height of the terror. A 13-year-old girl named Xiaohua, the daughter of migrant farmers living in the city, vanished in broad daylight while playing near the Central Park. This time there were more witnesses. Some reported seeing her approached by a group of unfamiliar men who seemed friendly, as if they knew her. But when questioned, no one could recall their faces or distinguishing features. The city now felt like a giant cage where everyone eyed each other with suspicion. Young women stopped going out alone, schools tightened security, and parents kept their children locked indoors like prisoners. The rapid succession of disappearances fueled rumors. This wasn't random, it was a calculated series of crimes. At this point, the Kunming police took decisive action. A special task force was formed, led by seasoned officers. They profiled the victims. All were female, aged 13 to 18, attractive, and living near the city center. This led them to suspect the perpetrator was a local familiar with the area with a preference for young girls. Several theories emerged. 1, the victims were lured with promises of jobs or money. 2, the perpetrator acted alone, targeting random girls in familiar areas. 3, this was an organized operation, possibly tied to human trafficking or other illegal activities. To test these theories, the police reviewed lists of known offenders with histories of violence or child abuse. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses and sketched suspect profiles based on vague descriptions. But initial efforts led nowhere. There were no signs of a struggle at the disappearance sites and no reliable witnesses. The police were frustrated by outdated technology, no cameras, no digital data, just paper pens and legwork. Amid the deadlock, a local resident came forward with a tip they had seen a tall man loitering near one victim's school. He was about 40, wore a black coat, and had cold eyes. This matched earlier descriptions. The police created a sketch and compared it to local records, identifying a potential match: Li Jian, the owner of a tavern in the city center. His tavern was a gathering spot for all sorts: laborers, strangers, and mountain folk. The task force quickly devised a plan to approach Li Jian. They interviewed neighbors, gathering details about his habits and schedule. But when they arrived at his tavern, it was inexplicably closed for the day. A gut feeling told them something was wrong. A SWAT team was dispatched, breaking down the door. What they found inside marked the beginning of a horrifying case. A putrid stench hit them, a mix of decay and blood. The scene was overwhelming. A man lay face down near the front door, his position suggesting he tried to crawl out but didn't make it. Blood trailed from the living room to the door, indicating he was attacked inside before attempting to escape. Forensics teams moved in. The victim was Li Jian, the tavern owner, the very man under suspicion. He had been stabbed multiple times, none fatal, suggesting the killer wanted to torture him. He bled out slowly, dying in agony. In the kitchen, a blood-stained knife was found with fingerprints collected for analysis. In the living room, a naked woman's body lay sprawled. Li Jian's wife. Her body was covered in bruises, particularly around her neck and wrists, with scratch marks indicating she fought fiercely. Forensics suspected she was restrained before being killed. In her hand, she clutched a strange piece of fabric which was collected for analysis. Evidence suggested she was raped before her death with bodily fluids, confirming the assault occurred shortly before. In the bedroom, the scene grew even more horrific. A boy about 10 years old lay on the bed, Li Jian's son. There were no signs of a struggle, but deep strangulation marks, and a nearby rope indicated he was choked to death. Strange hairs on his pillow were collected. The police confirmed this was a family of 4: Li Jian, and their 13-year-old daughter, Li Ming. But Li Ming was nowhere to be found. With no signs of escape or accident, the police suspected she had been abducted, possibly the next target. Analyzing the wounds, the police estimated at least 2 to 5 perpetrators using different methods: stabbing, rape, and strangulation. Valuables were missing initially, suggesting a robbery gone wrong, but the extreme violence hinted at a deeper motive. Using blood spatter analysis, they reconstructed the scene. Li Jian was attacked first in the living room, crawling toward the door. His wife and son were killed afterward. Fingerprints, hairs, and bodily fluids were sent for analysis, but in 1984, technology was limited: no DNA, just magnifying glasses and manual comparison. They found at least 5 distinct fingerprints supporting the theory of multiple perpetrators. Hairs and blood samples were analyzed but yielded no breakthroughs. Neighbors reported hearing no unusual noises that night, despite the scale of the crime, suggesting the victims were silenced or threatened. Neighbors described the Li family as kind, with no known enemies. Li Jian, originally from eastern China, often helped the poor. His wife was beautiful and gentle, and their children were well behaved. There was no criminal history or disputes. The robbery motive was ruled out, as no similar crimes had occurred recently. The investigation widened, focusing on individuals with histories of violence or sexual abuse. Roadblocks were set up to search for stolen items, particularly jewelry, but months passed with no progress, and the case hit a dead end. Frustrated authorities brought in Captain Yan, a veteran investigator known for his tenacity, to take charge. Captain Yan, with over 20 years of experience, wasn't one to give up easily. He believed every case had overlooked clues. Reviewing the crime scene, he focused on the fabric in Li Hua's hand. It wasn't typical lowland fabric, featuring intricate red and black patterns, possibly from a minority ethnic group. He suspected it was key. His team took the fabric to textile markets, but no one recognized it. Just as hope faded, a man in ethnic attire stepped forward. He confirmed it was traditional Yi minority fabric used by communities in the Southwest Mountains with distinctive cultural patterns. Excited, Captain Yan saw a lead. The Yi lived in isolated mountain villages, rarely interacting with outsiders. He formed a special task force posing as textile merchants to infiltrate the village. The journey was grueling, rugged mountain paths and dense forests. They reached a village of about 70 households, mostly young men and elders. Hosted by Mao Ba, they conversed warmly, but Captain Yan noticed something odd: no women were visible. When he asked to see the back rooms, Mao Ba grew visibly tense, though he quickly masked it. That night, Captain Yan and Officer Xiao Ning sneaked to the back room. Through a window, they saw a woman about 25 curled up on a cold floor, her hair disheveled, her face gaunt, staring blankly at the ceiling. The sight chilled them. They retreated, cautious not to act rashly. The next morning, during a meeting with the Mao clan, Captain Yan asked about the locked room. They evaded, changing the subject, heightening his suspicions. Visiting other homes, he noticed similar small, locked rooms. On the final day, they slipped into Mao Jiu's back room. Inside, a 15-year-old girl sat motionless, her eyes wide, her belly swollen. She was pregnant. She was emaciated, her eyes lifeless. Captain Yan recognized her. She resembled Li Ming, Li Jian's daughter. He called out Li Ming. Her eyes widened, tears streaming as she opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Captain Yan entered with Xiao Ning guarding outside. After calming her, Li Ming shared her story. It began on an ordinary day. Her father, Li Jian, brought rough-looking men home saying they were factory colleagues. Their unsettling stares made her nervous. After a late dinner, as she slept, she heard a commotion. Her mother told her to stay hidden, but she looked out. 2 men grabbed her, silenced her, and dragged her away. They attacked her brother and mother in front of her father, then turned on her. She fainted, waking in a remote shack, bound and gagged. She tried escaping, but was caught and brutally beaten. After a month, she gave up hope. Then she discovered she was pregnant. The men continued abusing her, treating her as a tool. Her story shocked Captain Yan. This wasn't just about disappearances, it was a network abducting girls as wives. He comforted her, promising safety. The next morning, they brought Li Ming to the station. After safely returning Li Ming to the Kunming police station, Captain Yan didn't rest for a moment. He knew time was critical. Any delay could let the perpetrators escape or harm more victims. He called an emergency meeting with the entire task force. The room was packed, the air heavy with tension. Officers sat around a table cluttered with thick case files and maps of the mountains. Captain Yan stood at the head, his voice low but sharp. "We've found Li Ming, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. Her testimony not only solves the Li family massacre, but ties to the 3 other missing girls we're investigating. This is an organized crime network, and we must dismantle it before it claims more lives." Li Ming, after receiving basic medical care and psychological support, began sharing more details. In the interrogation room, her small frame trembled under a warm blanket, her eyes still reflecting horror. With a female officer's help, she recounted every detail, her voice halting but resolute. It started with her father, Li Jian, meeting rough men from the mountains. Initially posing as traders of liquor and goods, Li Jian's whispers about quick riches and easy girls raised her suspicions. But at 13, she didn't fully understand, only feeling uneasy under their predatory gazes. Her testimony painted a chilling picture of a kidnapping network. She confirmed her father, Li Jian, was the mastermind. Using his tavern as a front, he scouted and selected victims, beautiful, naive girls, easily lured with promises of jobs or money. He gained their trust, then led them to isolated spots where his mountain accomplices, the Mao clan, abducted them. The girls were taken to the mountains, locked in dark rooms, abused and forced into marriages. Li Ming said she saw at least 2 other girls in the village similarly emaciated and pregnant. One was Xiaolan, the first missing girl. "They called us new wives. She choked, but we were slaves. I tried escaping, but they beat me until I had no strength left." Her words silenced the room. Captain Yan scribbled furiously, his face darkening with rage. This was no longer a single case. It involved at least 4 victims, possibly more. The 3 earlier disappearances matched perfectly Xiaolan, Xiaoming, and Xiaohua, all lured by a local man, Li Jian. He bridged the city and mountains, using his social knowledge to trap victims, while the Maos provided hideouts and brute force. Captain Yan urged superiors to issue immediate arrest warrants. "We can't wait," he stressed. "These criminals are hiding in the mountains. If they know Li Ming escaped, they'll flee or destroy evidence." Using Li Ming's testimony and the fabric clue, the police identified the culprits, 8 Mao cousins from the Yi village led by Mao Jiu, a 35-year-old muscular man known for fighting and evading past smuggling raids. He gave orders. Mao Song lured victims, Mao Wei handled transport, Mao Qi and Mao Ba guarded the village, while Mao Jin, Mao Shi, and Mao Ping executed violence. Armed with knives, axes, homemade shotguns, and crossbows, they were dangerous in the familiar mountain terrain. The arrest plan was meticulous but perilous. In 1984, technology was limited: no GPS, no drones, no modern communication. Everything relied on manual intelligence, paper maps, and human grit. Captain Yan split the team. His group surrounded the village from the east, Xiaoning's from the west, with a third as backup. They used old jeeps to reach the mountains, then trekked through rugged forests, deep streams, and steep cliffs. "Stay sharp," Yan warned. "These men know the terrain and may use traps or ambushes. We must be stealthy." The operation began at dawn under thick mountain fog. The police moved silently, using dim flashlights and hand signals. Nearing the village, they noticed smoke from houses and barking dogs. Mao Jiu's group sensed danger, likely from prior undercover visits. The Maos fought back. Crossbow arrows flew from bushes, nearly hitting officers. One policeman took a minor shoulder wound but held firm. Yan ordered a tight encirclement, cutting off escape routes. "Don't let them slip away. Focus on Mao Jiu's house." 2 grueling days and nights followed. By day, the police tightened the noose, using terrain for cover. At night, they endured freezing cold, wild animal sounds, and sneak attacks. Mao Jiu led fierce resistance, firing shotguns to intimidate and charging with a knife, nearly injuring officers. Mao Song and Mao Wei tried fleeing through the forest, but were intercepted by Xiaoning's team in a hand-to-hand struggle. Mao Qi and Mao Ba hid in houses, threatening with axes, but were subdued with guns and cuffs. After 2 intense days, 5 were captured: Mao Jiu, Mao Song, Mao Wei, Mao Qi, and Mao Ba. Bound tightly, their faces smeared with dirt and blood, their eyes burned with defiance. But 3, Mao Jin, Mao Shi, and Mao Ping, had fled earlier toward Qinghai City, hundreds of kilometers away. Yan didn't falter. He coordinated with Qinghai police via urgent telegrams. Based on initial confessions, they located the trio hiding as factory workers in Qinghai's outskirts. Qinghai police tracked them discreetly, using local informants. Unaware, the 3 lived normally but carried knives and axes for protection. The Qinghai arrest was swift but intense. One rainy afternoon, police surrounded their tenement. Mao Jin spotted them first, shouting and slashing at the door to escape. Mao Shi and Mao Ping smashed a window, leaping out. A dramatic chase ensued through muddy streets. Police ran used jeeps to block paths while the trio dodged through urban terrain. Mao Jin was caught after slipping in mud, biting an officer's hand. Mao Shi swung an axe but was subdued with batons. Mao Ping climbed a roof but surrendered when cornered. No major injuries occurred, but the arrest shook the neighborhood. With all 8 in custody, and Kunming interrogations began. Under pressure from evidence and Li Ming's testimony, they confessed. Mao Jiu, the leader, admitted meeting Li Jian through illegal logging, a lucrative trade. All over 30, unable to marry due to their rough nature and bad reputation, they despised local women as ugly and backward-craving beautiful city girls. Li Jian promised to find wives if they worked for him. He masterminded the scheme, using his social savvy to lure victims and teaching them to kidnap without traces. The massacre's details emerged. That night, Li Jian invited his crew to plan another kidnapping. After heavy drinking, a dispute over smuggling profits erupted. Li Jian demanded a 60-40 split, mocking them as ignorant. Enraged, Mao Jiu ordered an attack. They gagged Li Jian, raped Li Hua and Li Ming in front of him, and strangled his son for crying. After satisfying their urges, they stabbed Li Jian, repeatedly looted valuables, and took Li Ming as Mao Jiu's wife. "We didn't plan to kill the family," Mao Jiu claimed. But things spiraled out of control. Li Jian brought it on himself. The confessions clarified the network. They kidnapped 4 girls, enslaving them sexually with Li Jian as the architect. Captain Yan sighed in relief, but knew the case wasn't over. Justice and rescuing the remaining victims remained. After months of relentless pursuit, the dark criminal network was finally exposed to the light of justice. The Kunming People's Court in Yunnan province became the focus of the nation, where the perpetrators faced the consequences of their barbaric acts. This wasn't just a trial of 8 criminals, it was a moment for society to confront gaps in legal awareness, especially in remote areas where outdated customs persisted. Picture the tense courtroom, cold walls, whispers from the crowd outside, and the furious gazes of surviving victims and their families. The trial spanned days with chilling testimonies, undeniable evidence, and the harshest sentences the law could impose. The trial opened on a crisp autumn morning in 1985, with public outrage still boiling over the case's horrific details. The courtroom was heavily guarded, with armed police stationed outside, fearing interference from mountain accomplices. The 8 defendants, all Mao cousins, Mao Jiu, Mao Song, Mao Wei, Mao Qi, Mao Ba, Mao Jin, Mao Shi, and Mao Ping, were led in, shackled, their faces gaunt after months in detention. Gone was their defiance. Mao Jiu, the ringleader, sat center, his shifty eyes avoiding the crowd. Opposite, the surviving victims, including Li Ming and 3 other girls, sat in the witness section, trembling but resolute. Families of the deceased parents, broken by loss, wept silently. The prosecutor, a sharp, middle-aged woman, opened with a detailed case overview. "This is not just individual crime," she declared, her voice echoing, "but a barbaric system violating human rights, especially those of women and girls. They turned innocent girls into sex slaves, and when internal conflicts arose, slaughtered a family to cover their tracks." She presented evidence, blood-soaked crime scene photos, the Yi fabric, Li Ming's handwritten testimony, and weapons like knives and axes used in the arrests. The defendants' testimonies followed. Mao Jiu, first on the stand, admitted partial guilt, but tried to justify it. "We just wanted wives," he said, staring at the floor. "In our village, no one would marry us because we're poor and rough. Li Jian promised to help in exchange for smuggling work. We didn't think it was a big crime." Pressed about the massacre, he faltered, recounting the fatal night Li Jian invited us to plan another kidnapping. "He got drunk, demanded a 60-40 split, and insulted us. We beat him, then saw his beautiful wife and lost control." His words sparked murmurs and tears in the courtroom. Mao Song and Mao Wei, who raped and killed, echoed him, blaming alcohol and Li Jian's goading. The others, Mao Qi, Mao Ba, Mao Jin, Mao Shi, and Mao Ping, claimed they were followers acting on Mao Jiu's orders. They admitted kidnapping girls, holding them in damp mountain shacks, and treating them as property. Mao Ba, who kept a victim in his back room, trembled. "She cried a lot, but we thought it was normal in the mountains. We didn't know the law." Their ignorance, rooted in isolated Yi customs, where bride kidnapping lingered, was evident. But the prosecutor dismissed it. "Ignorance is no excuse. You violated China's criminal code with murder, rape, kidnapping, and trafficking." The victims' testimonies were heart-wrenching. Li Ming, now 14, took the stand with a female officer's support. Still frail, her belly slightly swollen from an unwanted pregnancy, her voice shook but held firm. They took everything she said, tears streaming. "My family was killed and I was dragged to hell. Every night I dream of my mother and brother begging for help, but I was powerless. I didn't want to live, but I had to for justice." Her words moved many to tears. The other 3 girls rescued from the village shared similar stories, lured by job promises, taken to the mountains, imprisoned, and abused. A 16-year-old, now a mother to her rapist child, said, "My baby is innocent. but seeing him reminds me of the pain. I want to forget, but I can't. Their words were not just evidence, but a cry from society's forgotten. The defense argued for leniency, citing the defendant's impoverished, uneducated mountain upbringing and influence of outdated customs. But this was swiftly rejected. The prosecutor noted Li Jian, the mastermind, wasn't innocent. He orchestrated the network, exploiting the Mao's ignorance. His greed led to his family's tragedy, she said. Evidence of their logging smuggling reinforced the organized crime charge. After days of debate, the chief judge, a seasoned figure with a calm but stern voice, delivered the verdict. The courtroom fell silent, only heavy breathing audible. Based on evidence and testimony, he declared the court sentences as follows. Mao Jiu, Mao Song, and Mao Wei, the primary perpetrators of murder, rape, and kidnapping, are sentenced to death by firing squad. The others, Mao Chi Mao Ba, Mao Jin Mao Shi, and Mao Ping, are sentenced to life imprisonment for complicity. Applause erupted, mixed with victims' families' sobs. The defendants bowed their heads, some pleading, but justice was served. The verdict sent a strong message to would-be criminals. But the case didn't end with the sentences. It exposed a grim reality, a network abducting women as brides in remote mountains where the outdated custom of bride kidnapping persisted. The 4 rescued victims faced tough futures. Li Ming and another pregnant from rape battled physical and emotional scars. Sent to care centers, they received medical and psychological support, but nightmares, fear of men, and the burden of raising rapist children lingered. The other 2 who had given birth struggled to reintegrate, some rejected by families for dishonor. This highlighted gender inequality in 1980s China, where rural women were often treated as property. The case's impact was far-reaching. Yunnan and national authorities launched campaigns on legal awareness and women's rights. Teams visited minority villages holding workshops, screening case documentaries, and distributing legal materials. No custom overrides the law read widespread posters. They emphasize women's and girls' rights, urging an end to illegal bride kidnapping, a tradition in some ethnic groups where men abducted women without consent. Patrols increased in mountains, hotlines were set up, and girls' education was supported to prevent victimization. Kidnapping cases dropped significantly, and legal awareness rose in remote areas. The case taught a profound lesson about crime's consequences. Li Jian, the mastermind, embodied reaping what you sow. A city man with knowledge, he chose crime over honesty, luring girls and running smuggling operations. His greed led to his family's slaughter. Had he stayed honest, he might still be a tavern owner with a happy family. The case reflected broader issues: urban-rural divides, rural illiteracy, and the urgent need for gender equality. Beyond its horror, the 1984 Kunming case was a turning point in Chinese justice. It spurred legal reforms, enhanced protections for women and children, and helped end backward customs. Over 40 years later, it's still taught in educational materials as a warning of justice's power and crime's consequences. For the victims, though, scars remain. Justice brought some peace. Li Ming later became a strong advocate for women's rights, turning pain into strength. And so the story of the missing girls and the horrific Kunming Massacre ends here, but its lessons endure. Justice may be slow, but it comes to those who fight for it. Thank you for watching until the end on Blood and Truth. If you have thoughts on this case, perhaps anger at the crimes or empathy for the victims, share them in the comments below. We'd love to hear your insights to discuss and learn together. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to catch our next gripping true crime video. See you soon, and until then, stay safe.